Hey folks, my guest today is going to be three-time Olympian and Olympic medalist Dave Morris. Dave had a long career as a freestyle aerialist, and in this episode we go through and talk about his career. We talk about how he got started, we talk about some of the successes, we talk about the setbacks, we talk about his illustrious career, from World Championships medals to World Cup wins, and obviously his journey through those three Olympics he competed in. We touched a little bit on his career after skiing as he's gone into coaching and now teaching. And it was a lot of fun to have this chat with Dave. He's a good friend, and I really hope you folks enjoyed this episode. Thanks. And we're rolling.
And
David,
we're rolling.
and we're rolling, dog. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a little bit to try and nail down the timing, but we
Bit back and
finally
forth.
did
Time
back and
zones are
forth.
not fun.
Yeah,
They're not
time
fun.
zones are tough, especially traveling all around and everything else makes it a little bit tricky, but here we are.
Certainly does. Finally got there. So thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Dude, appreciate you coming on. This is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of
Should be
fun.
good.
So let's start out with, I mean, I remember when we were in Australia, I think we were like looking for some extra meanies to work on the ramp, and I was kind of because I didn't really know. I was like, how did you
That's
get
right.
into area? Like, how did you kind of
How do
find
you
your
even start?
way? How do you even start? Yeah, how did you find your way into aerials?
That's a good question. Well, now we have a fantastic facility in Brisbane, which is really fortunate for the up and newcomers. But before that, there was this little pond out in Lilydale in Melbourne.
It's still
And
there.
it's like, yeah, still there, still used. Not sure why. Leeches, turtles in there, all sorts of stuff, reeds, mud. It's terrible. But that was Australia's best training facility, and I just happened to live within half an hour, which is very fortunate for me. And I've been a gymnast since I was 3 years old, and I also could ski, like not fantastic, but I know how to ski. I was in my gymnastics club doing a display night for parents and people, and a lady called Kirsty Marshall comes in, and she's a former Olympian in the sport, and World Cups, World Championships, everything, and she's there as a parliamentary member, and she's just drops in to have a look. There was a local sort of member there, and my mum's like, "Do you know who that is?" I'm like, "No." It's like, "Oh, it's Kirsty Marshall. She did this sport. You should go and talk to her." So I'm like, "Okay, sure, I'll go and talk to her." So I was like, "Hello," and whatever. And she's like, "Oh, I just noticed you pretty good at doing your flips and stuff over there. Would you be interested in trying aerial skiing? We have no men in Australia doing it, and if you're interested, I will coach you for free." And how can you say no to that?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So she basically said, "Yeah, we'll go out to Lilydale." I'm like, "Cool, close." And she took me to these water ramps. And I think, first day, did some T sets, just some straight airs, and I think a front tuck because I, knew how to flip, I knew how to ski. I was like, I can get off a ramp. And I fell in love so quickly. Like, how many people can do flips, whiskies on, and land safely, in a water and not hurt yourself? It was just the coolest experience I've ever had, and I was hooked from then on. And long story short, lots of complications. I eventually became the only male on the team because they just don't have a men's program, and I'm not even sure that they really still do. Women's program is very successful, and
Mhm.
they'd had lots of Olympic medals and World Championship medals, and they just didn't really want any boys. So I was sort of a thorn in their foot in a sense. I was just tagging along, like, "Hey, I really like to do this," and like, "No, no, we don't want any boys." And putting a boy amongst the girls just complicates, rooming and
Sure.
training and all sorts of things. According to some people, I found no problem for me. But yeah, eventually got to be the only boy on the team and went on from there. But it started just by chance. Kirsty Marshall came into my gymnastics club and I had a chat to her, and she offered to help me and gave up her weekends just to send me off some jumps and get me connected with the people who I needed to talk to. And crazy,
Fell in love from
just
there.
lucky, just
Yeah.
lucky,
Yeah. It's
as are
funny how
most
that,
things.
yeah, it's funny how that luck kind of plays a role. So then what's the transition like from, I mean, obviously you do it in the safe place on the water and everything else. And then, I mean, you have the skiing background a little bit, which
Yes,
is always, I mean, I feel like nowadays it's hard in aerials, especially them trying to recruit, trying to find people. And they're, you got to usually teach them all how to kind of ski and everything else, right? They have that
exactly right.
gymnastics background, but the skiing background probably, I mean,
It's
that's a nice,
complex.
yes,
Yeah, I
it's
guess
definitely.
I guess if you've never seen us train before, I guess I can explain it. So
Mhm.
yeah, so it's a water ramp. So we go off this it's a plastic or a ramp with plastic very hard plastic hairs on it, and you wax your skis, and they go down this ramp at a speed similar to that of snow. Very hard. You don't want to fall on it. It'll eat you up very, very quickly. Hence the term meanies is what they call it. It's because they're not very nice. And you go off a jump and you go into the water. And the water is relatively safe. It can still obviously hurt when you hit it. If you land with your skis flat, there's a lot of surface area there. It can definitely make an impact. But if you land on your head, you're okay, which is why we train everything on water first. And then we take those learned skills on water and then transfer them to snow, where obviously there's a landing hill for aerials. It's a 37-degree steep hill, so it's a lot nicer to land on than something flat, as we have to change our landing angle a little bit on snow. And then you do it on snow, have a great time, come back to water, learn some harder skills. You add a flip, you add a twist here and there, as they do in all the sort of freestyle sports, and then take it back to snow, and you just go back and forth until you're up to the very, very top, which of course takes many, many years. People see us at the Olympics doing all these huge flips and stuff like, oh, that's so crazy, it's impossible. No one could ever do that. But that was my thought process too at the start. My first day out there, I'd seen some videos. I'm like, there's no way I could ever do 2 flips and do some twists because I am doing a straight jump. And then after, a year, you can flip, and after another year, you can do a twist and you build yourself up. And my skiing background was definitely helpful. I wasn't nervous. Well, that's not true. I'm always nervous going down the ramp. That was a lie. I'm always nervous going down the ramp, but I was very capable of getting down the ramp safely.
Yeah.
If you haven't skied before, it's terrifying. It's like falling on snow is scary enough, but when you fall on this hard plastic stuff, it shreds you, shreds you up.
Yeah.
And it's very unforgiving. And people have gone off the ramp, into the grass, into the reeds, all sorts of things.
There's been a pretty good
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
round
I
of
do not
crashes
like
on the
I
water.
don't like those at all. The water ramp's the scariest part of the sport, to be honest. I'd rather jump on snow. And the gymnastics background obviously helped. And then I just slowly worked my way up through the skills. And I had some very good role models while I was out jumping at Lilydale. I had Lydia, now Lydia Lassila, now Olympic medalist, 2-time Olympic medalist, world champion, so many titles. And she was out there jumping, and I would just watch her like, oh my God, this girl's amazing. And she was so tough, and she's just got the grit. But she was also so lovely, and she looked after me from the very start, and was just like, guiding me here and there. And I was very fortunate to have that. And I'm not sure that many guys would have female role models, but that's all I had, because our team was all female. So I had just female role models to watch and be in awe. And they were a great team, and I eventually surpassed them with the skills. And it was almost a little turnaround. I skipped forward many, many years, and Lydia and I are up there at the top of the triple kicker doing 3 flips, and we're both terrified. I'm like, who wants to go first? And, having a discussion and helping each other do these jumps that we're both really scared of. It was a very interesting journey, but I've had some really good people help me along the way.
Yeah. So, I mean, talking about some of that fear, because, it's funny coming from different aspect, different background, like mogul skiing, you always go on the lift and people, you talk to them and they're like, oh, you guys are nuts to do that.
And I look at the mogul skiers and go, you guys are crazy. And I can understand that people think aerials is absolutely insane. And it is. It's stupid. It's a crazy sport. Absolutely. But it's very calculated risk.
Yeah.
I guess I can explain. So for us, we have 3 jumps. You have a single, a double, and a triple. And you do a single flip off the single, a double flip off the double, triple flip off the triple. We come in at various different speeds depending on what skill you want to do. So my biggest jump, which I would do, is 3 flips and 5 twists. Very complicated. I would come in at 67 to 70 kilometers an hour, it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
And the slowest jump, I think it's like 42 or something. Reasonable, but it's still scary when you come up this, a wall of a jump in front of you. It's this massive thing.
Yeah.
But we have calculated speeds, and we practice them on the water ramp, so we know around about how fast we want to come in to do a jump. And we practice it so many times, hundreds, thousands sometimes, of these jumps. So we know the speed. The hills that we jump on are usually, are to regulation, they're to spec. So they usually have a certain pitch. The landing hill's always within 1 or 2 degrees of what's expected, and the jumps are always the same shape, give or take, a little bit of melted snow here and there. But we shape the jumps and the angles exactly the same every week. So it's very calculated, which is why we can do such complicated skills. It's almost like gymnastics, where it's a close-ended sport where it's almost the same. Obviously, we're outside and the weather conditions come into effect, which makes it, that's where the real danger comes in, I guess. But
Right.
if everything was the same every day, it's not that complicated of a sport. We just repeat what we've practiced. Whereas I watch the moguls and you guys have this crazy course and you have to be an amazing skier, go down these bumps and you get to these jumps that are just shaped by hand and kind of, they just kind of guessed, oh yeah, that looks good enough. And you have to adjust your jump and your takeoff to the speed that you come down at. So if the last mogul was horrible for you and you're at a random speed, you have to adjust. We could not do this in our sport. We come down with the exact speed. If it's a little bit of wind, we're like, oh yeah, step up half a meter, get a little bit more speed. We can make these
Right.
adjustments, so when I watch the moguls, I'm like, you guys are mental. But ours, upon watching it on the TV, ours for sure looks more impressive because it's
Yeah.
higher and it's insane, and people can't even imagine doing that stuff. Whereas you
Yep.
can watch someone go down the moguls and go, I could ski, I can go over bumps,
Right. Yep.
I could maybe do a flip. But when you watch that thing from the side, holy moly, it's quick. And
It
I've tried to
is.
go down a
Oh yeah.
mogul course, I suck. No chance. Three moguls, I'm out. I'm out. So I think you guys are way more talented, to be honest. I love what I do, but I watch you guys. I go, nope, no, 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 no
There's
chance.
just a lot of added components, but I think I mean, part of the aerials that I feel like one of the biggest things, which you talked a little bit earlier, is just when you're at the top, like chatting with Lydia about to go off the
Mm,
triple, is some of that like how was it dealing with like that f fear factor? Because I feel like that's the biggest thing. As you say, you're coming in at
it is all fear.
70K,
Yeah,
and then you're coming into a wall to do, three flips,
yeah,
five twists. Like, I mean, how over the time, and I know repetition obviously helps that, but
yes.
like the mental aspect of that, I'm super curious about like how, because I'm sure you have the good days, and then
Oh,
you have
there's
the
plenty
days
good. There's
where
plenty of terrible ones. Yes.
where fear wins, right? You have the bad days where fear, you're like,
Yep.
So
And I
how
think
did you
that's
kind
what
of battle that?
makes, yeah. Well, like all winter sports, there's fear, and they're crazy sports. And ours is, I would say, 90% mental. You
Mhm.
do all the training, you know what you're doing, but it's still terrifying, and it honestly never gets that much easier.
Right.
You know, when you're up on the triple, I remember one of my first coaches, first time I did triple, he's like, it's going to be terrifying and it will not get any better than this. It won't get less scary. You get used to it, but you never turn up and go, just going to warm up with some triples. No problem. Never happens. But yes, repetition helps.
Sure.
And I guess it went from at the start, hoping that I'd be okay. You go, I think I know what's going on. I'm going to hope I'm okay. I know, knowing how to crash helps
Yeah.
because we do crash a lot. People don't see all our training videos. We don't post up the crashes. We crash a lot. And when you know how to crash safely, this helps
Hmm.
because I know that, okay, I'm going to come off the jump. If something goes wrong, I know how to take a hit to my back. I know how to make sure I don't land on my face or twist my knees up. I know how to safely take a crash. So it will hurt, but I can get up at the bottom. And this actually takes the fear away significantly, knowing that you'll be okay deep down, even if it's a hard landing.
Yeah.
And having that, I mean, with any sport, it's a confidence thing. And knowing that you can handle a bad jump. If something goes wrong, can I handle this?
Right.
Yes. And at the start, the answer was no, because you don't have the reps on it. And you're like, if something goes wrong, you're out of control and you don't know what's happening. But after thousands of training jumps, you know that if the speed's not quite right, you go, I can bend my legs and adjust, or I can stretch and I can adjust, or I can handle it and not panic while you're handling a situation that is different to what you're used to, because you've done each range of the spectrum. I've done jumps that are absolutely gigantic and huge and jumps that are really small. And then anywhere in the middle is within your range. And at the start,
Right.
like anything, you practice a specific skill. You're good at doing it exactly this way.
Hmm.
And then as you practice, you make a couple mistakes and you learn to handle the mistakes, and the scope of your skill gets bigger and bigger until it's out quite wide. And it's when I coach the younger athletes, they're like, oh, I'm ready to move on. I'm like, no, you're not. You've done one skill one particular way. You couldn't handle it faster, slower, if the jump was different. And learning how to handle every condition in every possible circumstance gives you a lot of confidence to get over the fear.
Yep.
But it still never quite goes away, because there's always, it's like, what if this is the last jump I do? And the one that really sticks out in my mind, was the first time I did this 3 flips and 5 twists. I was almost crying. Like it could have gone, it could be the last thing I ever do. It can go so wrong. And if you make a mistake on the takeoff, it's over and you can get lost and just you break everything. And I was up there like, why am I doing this? It's so scary. And I was so close to crying. And then Lydia comes up, gives me a hug. I'm like, no, don't touch me. No, it's gonna make it worse. Don't touch me. It's gonna make this. Don't get the emotions. Like you can go. And it was just knowing that all the practice that you've done will pay off in some way or another. It might not be perfect. It might not be the best
Sure.
jump, but you go, I've practiced so many times that if something goes wrong, I'll manage. I'll be okay. And you know, deep down that you will be okay. That's the only way I could sort of continue because there's going to be terrible days and you take big hits, but you go, I'm going to be okay because I know how to do it. And
Yeah.
that's, it's hard to teach it and it just comes through practice and the
Right.
self-confidence and making mistakes. And if you practice, you know, perfection all the time, I would gamble that maybe you get the perfect jump twice in your career. And I remember one, I was like, oh, this is it, nailed it. On takeoff, I'm like, this is the jump, this is perfect.
Yeah.
I only remember one that was like, that's exactly how I practice it on water. But it never happens. So
Yeah.
doing the range gives you the confidence to handle the range and handle the mistakes. So that, I mean, yeah, I don't know how to help people with that other than say, keep practicing. And when you mess up, learn from it. It's
Right.
good. Mess up as much as possible and write it down. Here's what I learned from this mistake and note that. So next time it happens, it's a controlled mistake.
Right. Well, I think it's good also for people out there to like the fear never goes away.
No, and
That's
don't
just
think
it's
that we're
every,
these amazing
just have
athletes
these
that go, oh yeah, we're
expectations
cool.
that, yeah.
No, the
Mhm.
expectations are, yeah, people think, you know, we're amazing and we can do anything. We can't. Everyone has a limit. And for
Yeah.
me, the 5 twists was my limit. I was like, there's no way I could do anything more than that. And everyone reaches a limit and we're not invincible out there and we are scared. We
Mhm.
just handle it with a calm face. But on the
Right.
inside, there's a lot of, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like this is, it's on the inside. You don't see us in the changes afterwards going, oh God, and we're exhausted at the end of the day. It's mentally draining out there.
Right.
But when there's a camera or there's, you know, I'm a performer. I like performing in front of a crowd. If there's a crowd watching, they're not going to see my fear
Right.
because I'm not going to show it. But I'm terrified every single time. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay to admit that. And I've seen
Right.
boys up there pretending not to be scared. I'm like, don't be stupid.
Right.
Don't be stupid. You either have no idea what you're about to do or you have a concussion. You are 100% terrified and don't pretend you're not. It doesn't help anyone.
Right. Well, I think that's part, I mean, it's interesting for each different person, but definitely people I've had on the podcast before have always talked about, hey, I mean, that fear is always there, every run, whatever else,
Yep.
and like being able to focus in on the skills and what you need
Yes.
to accomplish kind of is able to push that out of your frame of mind long
Yes.
enough to be
Actually,
able
on
to
that topic,
execute the
yeah.
jump. Yeah.
Exactly. So on that exact topic, before my first Olympics in Vancouver, I took
Hmm.
a huge crash on the last training jump the day before. Got lost in the air, and I never get lost in the air. I always
Okay.
know where the ground is. And I got absolutely lost, landed on my head, and that was the last training jump before the comp the next day. And I went to bed like, I'm gonna die tomorrow in front of everyone. Like this is so crazy. This has never happened before. And then the next day, go out for the competition, and I was so scared of dying in front of a crowd of people on TV that I focused so hard on the only thing that would keep me safe, which was hitting a takeoff.
Hmm.
And I forgot about the crowd and I forgot about the music and I forgot about the pressure and everything. I went, you have to hit a takeoff or you're going to kill yourself. And that focus got me through the training and got me landing both jumps in the competition. It was one of the best training sessions I've ever had, and I landed everything.
Hmm.
And in the competition, I landed everything. And I was just so focused on the only important thing, which was hit the takeoff, instead of getting distracted as we all do with things that are happening.
Right.
But it took the fear away. And I was scared, but as soon as I started hitting the takeoff, I was like, oh, if I just do this one major component, everything falls into place.
Yeah.
And I found that very helpful. So if I was to give people advice, you know, what do? I go, just, you know, singular focus on the most important thing that leads to everything else. And then it sort of accumulates from there. It follows on.
Hmm.
But
Well,
that
I
was huge
mean,
for me.
Talk about that. I mean, Olympic experience, right? I mean, it sounds like training sessions obviously didn't quite go the way
They
you
never
want
do.
to.
They
It's your
never go
first
well.
Olympics. Like it's one of those. I mean, just talk about that experience, and then later on, I mean, you're the flag bearer for the closing ceremonies.
Yeah, yeah. So,
It's quite the Olympic career over three
yeah,
Olympics.
they were very interesting. So I've been to three. Very fortunate. I've trained to those, and the first one was an experience, and I went there to enjoy the games. I'd been Olympian, and I was like, I want the uniform. I want to be on TV. I want to be famous, and all. Everyone wants this. I want to be the Olympian, and
Hmm.
the best advice I got was from Lydia at the time, who I didn't appreciate it, but she goes, "It's not about the uniform. It's about how you perform." And at the time, I just wanted the uniform. I wanted to be Olympic, rings and be cool. And she's 100% right. It's not about the uniform. It's about how you do. But I performed very well, above my expected standard there. And training didn't go fantastically, but my habit, as much as I hate it, is to train really, really badly and then compete really, really well. And I think I hold back in training. I don't recommend this to people. I just have some subconscious, I'm just going to hold back a little bit, which doesn't help because then I go out into the competition and try harder. And it's like I'm doing it for the first time because I haven't put this much energy in
Right.
for the whole training season or even sessions. And I'm like, it's a stupid way to do it. It worked for me. I just hold back 10% and
Interesting.
go a little careful.
Yeah.
And I would learn from the training sessions. And this is, I think I just got really good at doing it. I would go a little tentative and just be careful and keep myself safe and learn. Here's how it feels. Here's what the jump feels like. Here's what the speed feels like. Here's how the landing feels. Here's how my body feels in the air. And then when the comp came along, I would gather all that information and go, all right, let's go, and just go.
Yeah.
And that's how I always worked. And I hate when my athletes do it. I'm like, can you just train properly, please? And actually practice what you're going to do? Because then you get more practice doing what you want. But I did exactly the same thing, held back and then just unleashed in
Right.
comp jumps.
In the
But
mo.
training
Yeah.
never went well. And a lot of people get discouraged when they have a bad training session or even just, a bad first round of whatever. But if the competition's not over, it's not over. And you don't win training. You don't get medals for winning training.
Right.
Training is information. It's what it's called, training. It's information that you can use or not use for your competition. And I just always use the information. And then sometimes I wouldn't land at all in training. And I'd be like, okay, I need to be more forward. I need to lean forwards down the hill more. So you can come in with this negative attitude of being like, oh, my training was so bad. I crashed everything and everything, my takeoffs are bad. And I would say, okay, yes, they were bad because I need to get more weight over here. And my landings were bad because I need to be more forward. So I'm going to do that on the next one. And so I use the information to make a positive action plan
Hmm.
for the next round. Instead of dwelling on how bad it was, I go, what did I learn? What am I going to do about it? And
Right.
then did something about it. And then the second Olympics, I was there for business,
Now,
and
did
I
you
had the
so learn from the first one?
absolutely. So first one,
Expectations.
experience, and it was
Right.
crazy and
The
wonderful and
jacket,
everything. Yep, got the
getting
jacket, and
the
I felt
yep.
good. And then afterwards, I ended up coming 13th, which for me was way above what I should have. Finals was the top 12. And I know that if I'd made finals, I would have quit because I would have had that. I've made Olympic finals, I've got my jacket, and I feel amazing. That was my goal. Go to Olympics
Hmm.
and get to the finals. And if I had, I would have been done. But I
Interesting.
didn't make finals by, I think, what was the score? I needed 221.89 and I got 221.02. Like
Yeah.
the
That.
smallest margin.
Mhm.
13th, missed out in the finals. And I was pumped with my performance, but disappointed at the same time. And I think the little disappointment of how close I got just kept me going, but I for sure would have quit. If I'd got an Olympic final, I've got first Olympic final, I'm out. Luckily, what happened for a reason. And I don't know if I want to use the word fate, but everything leads to everything
Sure.
else. Every
Yeah.
decision you make comes from everything you've had growing up. So I didn't make it, kept the fire in there. And so the next Olympics, I was ready to be there with the potential to win. I had bigger skills, more time to work on it. And I'd gotten over the hype of the first Olympics. And I was like, okay, Olympics, very cool, obviously. Don't want to take that away from anyone, very cool. But I'm not like, wow, oh my gosh, there's so many cool people around. I was like, I'm also one of these people now. I could I could be a medalist here. So I'm going to just calm. So I was there for business. I wanted to win.
Hmm.
And training, average. Training on the day of the competition, horrible. Got to my head. It got to my head. And
So what do you mean got to your head?
The atmosphere got to me.
Ah, okay.
So the first games I had the crash, which took my
Hmm.
mind off everything, and I was focused on
Right.
the
Not dying.
takeoff. And this games, I was in peak condition.
Hmm.
Training didn't go well, but I was just distracted by the crowd and the fact that I could do well. First games, I was full underdog, no chance of doing well. So I was like, whatever, I don't care. And I was like, I could win this, and this got to me. And the training day on the comp day, and it's like crashing everything, missing my takeoffs, just full disaster, as per normal, but not a great feeling.
Sure. Yeah.
And I get to the bottom, and I'm honestly actually wanted to go home. I didn't want to compete because I was so embarrassed. I was like, I'm really good. I had a World Cup win the year
Hmm.
before, a World
Yep.
Cup medal. I really got up there, and I was like, I am doing so poorly that I do not want to go out there and embarrass myself in front of the whole world watching by doing what I just did. I was like, I really honestly wanted to go. And it's like, I don't want to do this. And my coach is like, oh, princess, chill for a second, calm down. This is you every competition. Like you always have bad training and you're going to learn from it and you're going to go up and the next jump's the comp jump and you're just going to go and get it done. Like this is very, very typical you settle down. I was like, fair, just feeling a bit funny. It's like, yep, normal. Like you always do it. So I got up the top and we have a top coach up there and he basically said to me, that's a nice sunset, isn't it? And that's all he had to say. And I understood 100%. He basically said, calm the hell down.
Right.
And it's like, oh, it is a nice sunset, actually. I just went, here's it. Look where I am. I was
Right.
in Sochi, Russia. Like, yep, there's this cool venue, beautiful. Here I am. How lucky am I to be here? Then I switched on
Hmm.
and I took all the information from training, landed every comp jump, came away with the silver medal. And it was a 6, 7 hour competition, and I was exhausted at the end.
Yeah.
But I just made no mistakes. And I didn't do the best jumps in the world. I just did my jumps. And I think this is another thing when people are like, oh, I know it was so crazy your jumps. I'm like, they weren't my best ones. They were just mine, my usual ones. I didn't try too hard. I didn't try less. I just did what I have practiced. And if I'd gone out there and tried the best jump of my life, I would have crashed because I haven't practiced that one that many times. I've practiced my sloppy takeoff every jump in my career. So I kept my sloppy takeoff. Oh, my legs are a little bit apart. I didn't try extra hard to do anything different because then I would be training basically a new skill.
Right.
So I just did what I had practiced. And the first round getting through qualifications was the absolute most nerve-wracking because I wanted to continue. And my mindset at this time had changed from first many, many years. And I no longer wanted to make finals or an Olympic finals because I wanted to be a finalist. I actually just wanted to keep jumping. I'm like, I've practiced so many cool skills, and if I'm out in the qualification round, I can't even show everyone what I can do. And that it was a totally different mindset
Right.
going from I want to win, I want to make finals to I actually want to do another jump so I can show you another jump. And
Yeah.
it was totally different. So first round, really nervous because I wanted to keep going.
Hmm.
And then I got into the last round, which was the top four. I was the most relaxed I've ever been in my life because I was either fourth, third, second, or first. I couldn't get any worse than a fourth because it's
Yeah.
top four. So I'm up there laughing, going, I'm fourth at the games or better. So I'm just going to go send this one. And if all goes wrong, I'm fourth. Great. And I was pumped on fourth.
Hmm.
And that's why I made no mistakes and just was super chill. And I was up there against guys who were doing really hard skills and they went for the win. And two made mistakes and I came second. So a little bit lucky, but strategy gameplay
Sure.
worked out. But I was unbelievably relaxed in the last round. And I can't even when I think about it, I'm like, how was I so chill? But I didn't care what happened almost because I was so pumped on being fourth. I was like,
Hmm.
that's a great achievement. I have nothing to lose. And my last round was an underdog round where I went, nothing to lose. Let's go. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Never happened again, but that was great.
No, that's a really interesting, I mean, it's really great insight and attitude into those pressure moments and everything else, right? And
Mm.
then I mean the fact that you are so relaxed and just chill and like let's see, happy go lucky almost, right? In the moment and
Sometimes, yes. And I mean,
yeah.
some members of my team would train, really, really focused, and then they would compete like this. But when I train chill, I relax. And
Hmm.
that's when I do my best jump. So I had to compete also relaxed. And when people, if you'd watch me, you're like, what is this guy doing? Because I'd be in the crowd at the bottom, high-fiving, taking photos, signing autographs, just having a great time. And then I'd be like, 5 minutes from my jump, oh, better go. Switch on for 5 minutes,
Yep.
turn off again. And
Right.
that's how I managed to, the competition was 6, 7 hours. It was so long, but I
Right.
switched off in between jumps, talked to my family, kissed some babies, all the stuff at the bottom.
Right. Sure.
And then just went, all right, time to go. Focus for minutes, back off again. And
Yeah.
that's what got me through. And I just had a great time out there training or competing the way I trained, which was having fun, talking to people, and only focusing when I needed to and not for 7 hours straight of full focus. And that for sure drained some people's energy because they were stressed. And I
Right.
just switched off in
Yeah.
between rounds.
Well, it's got to be exhausting. I mean, as you say, 6, 7 hours of like being fully switched on. I mean,
Yep.
that's a tough mental task.
Yeah. And a lot of people made mistakes that they normally didn't. And people who should have been in finals weren't. And so that was a lot of mental training that paid off. And obviously coaches and staff helped like just chill and let me do my thing. I think they learned over time not to force me to focus because I don't work like that. Some people absolutely do. They just focus, focus, focus.
Right.
Lydia's a strong, focused athlete.
Hmm.
I'm the chill one,
Yeah.
which is good when we're at the top because she can get me focused and I can make her a little bit more relaxed and it builds up. But yeah, some people I think found it weird that I was so relaxed, but it works for many people not to be so stressed all the time.
Right.
And they have to respect me for that. But I also have to respect that I can't talk to everyone up there because some
Hmm.
of them are super focused. So I had
Right.
to pick and choose who my friends were, or not friends, but who I could mess around with. And other
Right.
people, I'm like, I'll let they're in their zone. But yeah, for me, it was being the most relaxed, having a great time, enjoying what I was doing, and not being so caught up on what if I win or what if I crash. And it was just like, let's just go and do a jump now and show everyone what I've been training for. Let me show them my good one,
Right.
whatever that is.
And it also speaks a little bit, I mean, I think to the coaches to having you
Mm.
relax and everything else. Like, I mean, I think that's, it's a easy comment, right? But like
I mean, it's not
nice
easy for them because
sunset,
they're
right?
probably
It's a
full of
nice
stress, like,
sun.
oh God,
Right,
he's
right,
not
exactly.
focusing. And yeah.
Look at that
And they,
sunset.
yeah, and that's all he said was just like, nice sunset, isn't it? And it was perfect because it just was like, slapped me in the face, like, what is wrong with you? But like, just have a look over there for a minute and just forget about it and just look over there. And I was like, well played. I see what you're doing. Yes, it's a nice sunset. Let's go
Right.
now. It was perfect.
So, I mean, silver medal, and then, I mean, that's you get to be the flag bearer at the, I mean, what was the
Yeah,
rest
so I
of
got
that
asked to be the
Olympic
flag bearer, which was
experience, and
super
what was
cool.
that? I
That
mean,
added to it for sure. Like that's
right.
a huge honor because you are selected to represent the team,
Hmm.
like as a face of the team. I was like, that's cool that I could be that. Like I've always wanted to be, I want to be this famous athlete, but at the end of everything, um, what I really realized was more important was being a really good role model. Like being a famous athlete is great if you're a good role model. And
Hmm.
I've plenty of examples of great athletes who are terrible. And like I watch them play, I won't mention any names or sports, but I watch them play and I go, I hope you lose because I don't like this person. I just don't like them. And
Yep.
they don't represent well and they are very talented, but I just don't like them. And so to be able to carry the flag to me was like, I've done well, I've got my medal, and I've been chosen as a good role model. This was super powerful moment for me, and it gave me
Hmm.
so much confidence in myself to then continue playing that role. So I then went on to another Olympics. I thought I retired, and I was like, nah, I come back. There was more,
Yeah.
and third round was
What was that kind of decision and internal kind of battle back and forth on that decision to
it
kind
was
of,
tricky. I retired 3 times in my career and come back every time. One was injury, one was after the Olympics because I thought I've got my medal now. It's perfect. I can finish. I'm
Mhm.
done. And I'd proven so many people wrong who didn't believe in me. Um, and on a slight branch off here,
Yeah, yeah.
I had like my whole career was basically jumping in spite of people because I had a lot of people not believing I could do it,
Right. That's good
and
motivation. That's good
that motivated
motivation.
me like a fire under my butt. Like you have no idea. Um, I don't think it works for everyone because I was internally angry a lot, but I channeled it into an action.
Hmm.
And any day I didn't want to get up, I was like, these people are waiting for me to quit. They're waiting for me not to get out of bed. And I was like, nah, not going to allow it. And it got me out of bed every single time. So after I'd got my medal and I'd proven everyone wrong, I was like, it was just such a great feeling. And I went home and thought about this. But of course, the people who you prove wrong don't come up to you and say, hey, I was wrong. Sorry, great job. They don't. But the people who supported you will always remind you of how much they supported you. And I had all these coaches like, oh, do you remember me? I coached you back. And I'm like, yeah, I remember everyone who helped me.
Hmm.
And I realized that the more satisfying feeling was to prove people right who had supported me. It was, yeah, jumping in spite, powerful, got me going. But the more satisfying end feeling was you guys were right because you backed me from the start. This was really cool.
Hmm.
But once I had realized that, it was hard for me to find the motivation to go again because the
Interesting.
anger of not being good enough kept me going. But when I had a medal, I was like, well, I am good. What do I have to prove now? That was really tricky for me. So I retired
Yeah.
for a year and I watched everything happen. I was like, yeah. Went into teaching and I loved teaching and coaching and did that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go again and I'm going to do it for me this time. So my
Hmm.
first Olympics was an experience to be an Olympian. The
Right.
second round was business. I wanted to win and do well and prove myself. And the third round, I was like, I'm going to go and do this particular jump that I want to do, which is
Hmm.
3 flips and 5 twists. It was the hardest jump that anyone could do at the time. So I want this. I want to go and compete this. And whether I land or not, I don't care. I just want to do this jump for
Hmm.
me. And I just couldn't care less about the result. Obviously, I don't go to lose. I love it
Right.
to be, it's a winning jump if you land it. But so
Yep.
that was my motivation. I'm like, I want to do this jump in front of everyone at the Olympics. That was my new motivation. It wasn't as powerful as the hatred,
Hmm.
the fire, which might be why I didn't do so well in the third Olympics. I came 10th, which is still reasonable, but for me, I was expecting to potentially back it up with a second medal.
Hmm.
Um, Training went well. Maybe that was the problem because I normally train poorly. Training went well, and I was like, that's weird.
That's
Maybe I should
weird.
just crash some on purpose. I don't know. Um, but I actually got knocked out in the first round of finals. I would say unfairly, as every athlete will say it's unfair. You're never going to have an athlete that loves the score.
Right.
But I did an average jump. I went a little tentative because I didn't have the same fire. I was like, I want to win. I want to do this jump. I need to get through the rounds. I was thinking a little too far ahead instead of being in the
Ah,
moment. This was the
interesting.
mistake. I was a
Okay.
little too far ahead. I was like, I wanted to do this jump, and that was the goal rather than just next jump, next jump. So I was a little bit tentative on the takeoff to make sure I landed. Big mistake because
Hmm.
tentative is stupid. If you go tentative, then you can expect a bad jump. So I was
Yep.
average, got a fair score, I would say, maybe a little rough. And I was watching the competition. My score was going down the list. I'm like, oh no, here we go. And there's one or two left, and one of these Chinese guys lands and then does a forward roll and loses his skis all over the hill. I'm like, oh, whoa, lucky. And he gets a score higher than me, even though he's crashed skis on the hill. He's done a forward roll. I'm like, that's that. Nothing I can do about it. So I
Sure.
think it
Right.
was ridiculous, and like the public watching were outraged, of course, and there's nothing I can do. We can't argue. We can't argue the scores. So I
Right.
just had to watch and go, wow, that's it. I'm done. That's it. It's over. And it was very upsetting, but also half my fault because I went a little tentative. I could have done a better jump for sure.
Right.
So I didn't get to compete this jump that I wanted to. I did it in the training session and I actually landed it, and my family was at a watch, which was super rewarding. So I was like, at least I did one,
Hmm.
but I didn't finish the way I wanted to.
Yep.
But I'm very proud of the way it did end in that I could have had the biggest hissy fit temper tantrum at the bottom because you go through the media section, and of course I know exactly what they're going to ask. They go, "Well, what happened with the scores? He crashed, and you should have got through." And like I knew exactly what was going to get asked.
Right.
So I had my little cry for 15 minutes at the top because I'm emotionally drained at this point. I'm
Yep.
like, my Olympics are over. I didn't get it. I was pretty upset, and I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't. And I'm okay crying up there. And found myself a little corner, had my cry, came down. I was like, all right, ready for this. There's a couple of ways I could have approached it. So I chose the acknowledge what has happened. Yes, I got beaten. I don't agree with this score,
Hmm.
but I have to respect that it's a judge sport. And this is what we know coming in. It's judged. There's human error involved. Obviously, I think I should always get a higher score. That's all athletes want better than they get every time without exception.
Right.
So I said, I accept that's the result. I don't agree with it, but that's what it is. And the guys who beat me have done such a great job. On the guy who fell over, he went to get on to a silver medal, and he's a friend of mine. You know, we're all friends out there,
Sure.
so I don't
Small
hate.
world.
Yeah, exactly right. Same with moguls. You know? I don't hate anyone, and I don't, blame anyone for a skill, because some people are like, oh, that Chinese guy, blah, blah. It's not his fault. He just did a jump. He
Right.
got a score at the bottom, went, oh, lucky, and kept going. Not his fault. You can blame judges all you want, whatever. So I said, really well done to my competitors today. They did such a great job. The podium jumps were amazing. I can't be disappointed to be beaten by such great jumps. It was such a high level competition. And that's how I handled it. And I was furious, of course. But this came off so well in the media because people wanted the tantrum. They wanted that anger. And I didn't do it. And they all got angry for me. And I got so many messages afterwards saying, you made us so proud of how you handled that. We're so proud to be Australian. This is such a great attitude. We wish more athletes were like this. So I actually ended my career on that previous feeling of being a good role model, like right at the top. And I actually got more interviews because of how I did that interview, saying, can't believe you handled it like this. You weren't angry. I was like, well, yeah, but,
Right.
there are kids watching. And
Yep.
people, these little kids watching you going, wow, this guy's amazing. And I'll never meet them. But how you answer a question means everything. How you handle yourself, whether you win or
Right.
lose at the end, is actually more important than the result, I believe. Because
Right.
you can win and be a terrible person, no one cares. You can be last and be the best attitude on the hill, and everyone loves you. And so you got to find that balance. So I actually ended my whole career on a weird high because I didn't get what I wanted, but I ended as a public figure exactly how I wanted to be. So I could walk, and then I walked away from there. Finally.
Finally. Yeah, well,
Finally.
that's really interesting to get the insight in there, and I mean, it's definitely life, right? Most of the time, it
Yeah.
doesn't go the way that we want to, right?
Most times it doesn't.
You have
And
different
that's,
things
yeah,
like you can't see coming or plan for,
exactly
right?
right.
You have this goal to do this trick and this jump, and that's the main reason to do it for you to bring you
Yeah.
back for that last. And I mean, that's
And I didn't get to do it. And to be
Mhm.
honest, very, very few people do not achieve their dreams.
Right. They don't
And
get to end their career the way that they
no,
want to. There's not the
no,
I'm going to Disney World.
it just doesn't happen. And I think it's
Mhm.
this unrealistic expectation that people at an amateur level, and I say this carefully because I know it's not everyone, and I don't want to discourage people from trying, but like the chances of people doing exactly what they wanted are very low, very low. Some people get like someone will win the gold medal. It's not a lottery. Someone will win it.
Right.
Someone will come second and third. Everyone in the field deserves it because they
Right.
are there. Everyone believes they've worked hard enough to get it. Every single person goes, I've worked hard to get it. I deserve it. I've earned it. Everyone thinks that, but only one can get it. Doesn't
Right.
mean everyone else fails. It's just how life works. So very few
Absolutely.
people actually get what they want, but it's not to say that you were a disappointment or that you failed. It's just the lottery of winning and losing. And you can have
Right.
a good day. Like my silver medal was a very good day for me in the end. It doesn't mean I'm second best in the world. I was second best that day. I had a
Right.
great day, and it
Right.
just happened to be a big day. The next day probably could have come last because maybe the weather was different. So
Right. On the
yeah,
day, how's it
on the
going to
day,
go? I mean,
it's just on the day,
right.
and whether you go well or not is just how luck falls your way sometimes. In
Mhm.
judge sports, it's a bit of luck, it's a bit of weather. But yeah, I'm very careful when people are like how do you what's it take to be a winner? All this, I'm like many many things.
Yeah.
Earning it, working as hard as possible, deserving it, absolutely. You
Yeah.
can't be a winner without these things, but these things do not guarantee that you win either.
Right.
You can have all of
You get a
them and
little
come
luck on the
last.
day too. Who is it?
Absolutely a bit of
Bradbury?
luck.
Isn't
Yep. Yep.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Bradbury, everyone
Bradbury
falls over, comes through for the win. I
comes
just
through for
needed
the
one more
gold,
person
right?
to fall, could have had the same outcome, but one landed. Oh, but that's how it works.
Right.
Absolutely. But yeah, I know that there was luck involved. Absolutely. I know it was a good day for me.
Hmm.
And I can tell the story now because I had such a cool outcome, but I feel really sorry when I watch people who clearly have worked very, very hard who don't get what they potentially deserve. But that's
Hmm.
most people.
Right.
And I
That's
think
life.
everyone feels disappointed. It is life, and everyone feels disappointed, but you can't be disappointed in yourself just because you didn't walk away with the medal.
Hmm.
It is cool, absolutely. I don't want to take that away and pretend that it's not a really awesome thing, but most people 95% of people don't get a medal.
Right.
And you are still an amazing person, and you're still an amazing athlete, and you've still done so much work, and you made people proud, and you have kids and other people idolizing you, and you'll never meet them. And that is way more important than a medal.
Right.
A medal's great,
Yeah.
but who you are is more important than a piece of hardware.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, we've talked about some of the highs. We've talked about a little bit of some of the setbacks. I mean, I want to talk a little bit just about the perseverance that you
Yep.
had through the career and kind of through sport, because I always think that's interesting for everybody to be able
Everyone's
to
different.
hear, right? Everybody's different and how they deal with injury and setback. I think you had a hip injury, right? That
Yep. Yeah.
sidelined you for, so just touch a little bit kind of on some of that, and because those dark
Okay.
times and those
Oh, there were
failures, I think
plenty of those. Oh,
that's where
yes.
you learn
Plenty
the
of
most. I
darkness.
always feel like I
100. No,
100%
I
believe
totally
like
agree with you.
winning the medals,
Uh,
you don't learn as much from like
You're right. If you,
sitting on the
if people are
couch.
successful all the time, you go, well, that's boring. I won again. You need these ups and downs to
Right.
appreciate both.
Yep.
So, okay, I can talk. I remember my first low was my
Hmm.
first time I went overseas to train. I got asked by the Aussie coaches, come over to Lake Placid and train with us. And I was like, this is so cool. And I just tried super hard to impress everyone. I had this terrible first week. And this is my first big slump. And I hated everything. I was like, why am I overseas? What am I doing here? This is the worst. I suck. And my coach said, write that down. Journal this thing. Journal it. Just, I won't read it. It's like, just write it down how you feel.
Hmm.
We kept training. He's like, and keep going. And next week came back up again. I was like, oh, I love the sport. He goes, now go back and read. And I read it and I was like, oh, wow, I overreacted a little bit there, didn't I? I wanted to go home. I was ready to quit. And he's like, write it down. Like, oh, I love the sport. I'm really good. Next week, sucked. I'm like, why did I even like it again? And this is, it was this up and down. And I journaled it all the time. And I got used to this pattern of terrible, good, and terrible and good, but it would go upwards. So each terrible day was a little bit less terrible than the last terrible day. It would go
Right.
upwards and upwards.
Hmm.
And then by the end of the career, your worst day is a day that you would have dreamed of doing at the start. You're like, oh,
Right.
I wish I was that good. And when you're up there, you go, I suck so bad. I didn't do perfectly today. And it's very interesting. So my first down, I journaled, and my coach helped me understand that it was part of this learning process of going up and down. And each time the down is not so down. It's there, but it's continued actually improving. Your bad days are not that bad. They're just
Right.
not. You have higher expectations as you go through. So that was my first real slump. My injury was my next one for sure.
Hmm.
So in getting to my first Olympics, minus a lot of details, I started the sport again, being rejected and saying, we're not going to let you join. And then when I got on, they said, all right, you can join as long as you make the Olympic finals in 4 years' time. So I had 4 years basically to start and make the finals. I skipped all the basics to get there. Super risky. Paid off
Yeah.
until it didn't. And the year after my first games, I came in at a bit slower speed, didn't know how to handle it because I hadn't practiced that mistake because I'd just done big, 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 big and just hoped for the best.
Hmm.
So I got hurt, broke basically everything in my hip, just shredded it to pieces.
Oof.
Had to go home, learn how to walk again, all this stuff. Not saying it's the worst. There's definitely worse injuries out there, but it was not fun
Right.
to go from I've been to the Olympics, post-Olympic depression even, and then an injury on top. And I was lowest of low. And I tried to come back after my rehab, and I ended up quitting because I just hated everything. So I really quit. I was like, I'm done. I came back from, I can do triple flips to come back to doing singles again.
Hmm.
I was like, I'm better than this. I'm too good. I was, wasn't mentally as tough as I am now.
Hmm.
And I didn't have the right thought process. I was like, I want to get up on the triple, and we're doing, water ramp competitions, and I was on the single being really embarrassed doing one flip. And I was like, this sucks. I'm done. And I just quit because I thought needed to be at a higher spot. And then obviously came back, lucky. But when I came back, it's because I wanted to be there. And this is the big difference. Every year we go through a season, you're in the next season because it just rolls on. And that's what you do. You're there because you're there.
Right.
Once I quit and I had a big step back and I went, no, I don't want to finish being that guy who, almost made the finals in Vancouver and then quit because he got injured. Like, I don't want to be remembered like this. So I came back and I wanted to be there. And that changed everything. And I'd learned from the rehab. Anyone who's had rehab, if you skip your rehab, you do it twice. If you do it poorly, you do it twice. If you cheat it, you do it twice or more, because it just doesn't work unless you do it properly. And this is exactly why I'd hurt myself training, because I'd skipped the basics and then something had gone wrong and I hadn't really done the fundamentals, hadn't done the build up.
Right.
So when I got through the rehab properly, I appreciated the process of it as much as I hated it. So when I came back to jumping, I was like, okay, I want to be here. This is going to suck at the start because I'm going to be back at the basics, but I'm going to do them properly this time. So I hated every day, hated it. No, not hated, really didn't enjoy it, but I understood the importance of it. So I just pushed through and I was like, today, this is not fun. I'm not having a good time. This is boring, but I have to do this because otherwise I'm going to do a second round of rehab because I'm going to hurt myself again. So I just pushed through. And by the end of that summer, I was amazing. Fundamentals in place. And I was like, oh, I should have done this the first time. I mean, of course, I didn't have time the first time, but I was like, now I was good and I knew how to handle everything. So that slump of the injury got me to appreciate how low everything was, how to find myself again and want to do the sport, come back, I go, I want to be here, and appreciate doing the basics. And then I came back, I was like, I'm really good now. And then I got my first World Cup podium that year, and then it led on to the Olympic medal the next year. So that was a interesting one. I can't really, oh no, and the next slump I had was going into my third Olympics, the build-up seasons.
Yeah.
I had a year off after my medal because I was like probably retired again and then came back. And I came back and I came second and third in the first two World Cups. And I was world number one instantly. Worst thing that ever happened to me. It was so cool, but
why?
Terrible because I got so cocky. So cocky.
Okay.
Because and someone said to me, oh, it's so amazing. You've just come back and you're on the podium straight away. And I was like, yeah, I'm pretty good, aren't I? Like in my head, I'm like, I'm really good. Terrible thought process. Because I went from being the underdog who worked really hard to being, I'm so good. I've come back after a year off and I'm beating everyone. And my brain went, you're good enough not to work so hard. Stupid. And I crashed every competition jump for the next season and a half because I was just in that mindset that I'm like, I just land because I'm pretty good at landing, and I just stopped trying. I look back now, I'm like, what was wrong with me? I have no idea what was going through my head, but I was not in the right place because I just got this big boost of too much of a boost of confidence too early from coming back. And I was like, I'm just great. And then I finally kicked myself in the butt and was like, you are not doing very well at all. This is the last world championships you're going to attend because you're for sure retiring. You better get into gear, switch back on, got a medal at the world championships. I went, jeepers, I better work hard. And I got did it again properly, but I needed to fail for a year and a half to understand how to do it again. It was really weird. So it was like, world number one was great, but it was one of the worst things that ever happened. Actually, it just ruined me mentally for some weird reason. Just the cockiness kicked in, and I'd never been such a cocky jumper before. I never say it to anyone. Like I never say it to anyone's face, but internally I was so cocky. It didn't work. I need to go back to being chill.
Yeah.
Got there in the end.
Well, it's interesting just to go through all those difference because as you say, it's so mental. Sport is
mental.
So being able to have those. It really had to help after your athletic career, and then when you start to get into coaching and because you try to have them avoid like the speed bumps. Like I've seen this mistake
all the mistakes
before.
I've made, I can't let you make them. And they, of course, they do it.
Right.
Like I did. My coach is like, don't do this. I'm like, I'll do it anyway. Because athletes are stupid and we're going to do what we want and we try what we want. And no matter what advice you get, you're still going to do it.
Right.
Yeah, it's exactly right. But at least I could understand it. So I'd see someone do something and I'd be like, don't do that. You're going to.
Right.
I'm like, I understand why.
You got to learn it the hard way, just like I did.
But honestly, that's the best way. Like, it's almost like, people have their kids and they don't want them to get germs and they wash their hands too much and they end up getting super sick because they don't have the immune system because they haven't let them eat the dirt and fall out and break an arm and learn life experiences. So like, I guess it comes back to almost what we were talking about before. When you fail and you do poorly, if you're an athlete, if you're out there failing and doing badly, great, cool, good. You should be. If you're not, you're not working hard enough. If you're not pushing your limits and you're just cruising along, you're not getting any better. You need to be failing in order to push your boundaries. And when you do, just take notes. What happened? Why? What am I going to do next time?
Yeah.
And it's everyone, and everyone's different. You have to go through the bad stuff.
Right.
And there's some things we of course want to help people avoid, like the really depressive state, like the post-Olympic depression is a real thing.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it, and I think I'd had it, but no one recognized it at the time. But I went this huge slump from being, I'm so important, I'm at the Olympics, everyone's watching me, to no one cares about you for the next 4 years. It's a huge drop,
Interesting. Yeah.
really hard, and that's something they don't really prepare you for, because
Hmm.
they get all this build up to the Olympics and they're looking after you, and then I mean, you still keep training and everything, but then no one
Sure.
cares about you for 4 years because people only watch the Olympics really.
Right.
I mean, you have the small crowd that always follow you around and your friends and stuff, but the main people only watch the big event, and you're a nobody for 4 years. This is really hard
Hmm.
to go from top to nothing overnight
Yeah.
if you don't get a medal, especially.
Hmm.
Like that's tough, and they don't prepare you for that. So that one took me out a little bit too. After Vancouver, I felt that, and even after Sochi, a little bit after I had my medal, I felt that little bit of a depression. But I guess because I got to talk about myself and do presentations, that sort of helped dull it.
Yeah.
But it is tough, and I can't even imagine. And this again sounds cocky. I'm very fortunate to make every Olympics that I went for.
Hmm.
I've seen plenty of people not make it. I cannot imagine what that feels like to work so hard to build up for 4 years. It's not like a season. 4 years
Right.
to not get a goal, not even get a chance at the goal. That is tough. And
Right.
for them to come back and keep pushing, that is real strength. To come back after a medal, not hard,
Right.
not difficult.
Yeah.
To come back to try again for people who don't make it, that is tough. I
Hmm.
applaud those people big time.
Yeah. So that how long did that like post Olympic kind of depression, and how did
Couple
you
months.
slowly but surely, because it seemed like listening to you, it seems like a lot of like, journaling, kind of note taking.
Yeah.
Were you kind of aware of that your mood or depression or kind of any of that stuff in the
At the
moment, or is
time,
it
no.
more at the time? No. Yeah.
Not at the time.
Hmm.
I mean, I was aware that I was grumpy and I didn't like people, and I was easily agitated very quickly, like all
Hmm.
the time. And I'm like, I'm very grumpy. Like I knew it, but I couldn't figure out why, and I couldn't control it. I was like, I'm in such a bad mood.
Interesting.
And I was snapping at people. I'm like, what is wrong? And I saw that I was doing it, but I couldn't stop. I'm very ashamed of it, actually. Now I think about it, like, I would just snap at people who were just saying something nice. I'm like, was that necessary? I'd go home and be like, who did I just turn into today? And some of it was not competing, because I love competing and you have a purpose. And
Right.
after an Olympics, people lose their purpose a little bit. You lose your identity. Like
Hmm.
having an identity as an athlete is everything.
Right.
Like I was, and I'm still trying to let it go. I'm aerial skier. It's my handles on all the social medias. And like that's just me. I'm David Morris, aerial skier. And even now I'm still struggling to let it go. And after you come down from a big high of a competition, you just lose who you are for a little bit. And I think that really can transform you into someone that you don't like. And I think people have
Yeah.
to be very careful of this. And that's when I think you really need to listen to your friends and your
Right.
family, because
Support group.
they yeah, listen to the support crew, the family and friends. Because if you're not with your coaches, they can't help you. But like people will tell you, they'll be like, you're not being like you're not like you're different. Something's wrong, and you got to pay attention to these people because they can see you for who you really are,
Hmm.
and they've understand what you've gone through. And I don't think I was listening at the time because I was confident in myself, but there was still a whole area that I didn't understand about myself, that I could
Yeah.
be such a negative person. And then fine, I think it was a couple months, and I started to get back in the gym and felt good about myself because I was being active. So it's more about the inactivity that really didn't help. And for sure, when people go through an injury, they have the exact same thing. You can't be active. You can't do what you like doing. You feel
Hmm.
like a slug because you're just lying around. You don't get that endorphin
Endorphins.
hit
Yeah. Right.
from being active and doing stuff, and it hurts people mentally and physically. It's really tough. So I was lucky that I had a gymnastics club. I could go and mess around, and it got me back in. But yeah, I don't know. Some people don't have that opportunity to continue training as
Hmm.
easily when they're injured, and it's very tough.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for people who go through that. It's not fun, and it's very hard to help them. They just have to be open to listen to people around him saying something's wrong and do something about it.
Yeah.
I didn't, and it took me months. It was silly.
To kind of, yeah, to get out of it, to kind of get
To
back to
to go,
normal.
oh God, I
Yeah.
need to get
Yeah.
myself back. Yeah, it could have been faster if I was a bit more open to help.
Hmm.
And as a male, I speak on behalf of most males. We don't ask for help. We
No.
just don't. It's
Hide
it's
those
a
feelings, bury those deep down.
and that is actually a real weakness. It's a real weakness. People think that asking for help is weak. It is not. It is a strength to know
Hmm.
yourself so well that you can go, I need assistance now, to know you can't do it on your own. So I learned that later in my career that ask for help was absolute power move.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can't do that. I acknowledge it. I know myself well enough to know I can't do this. That's
Hmm.
not me, but not cocky anymore. You go, I can't do it. I need assistance. And then you get the assistance and you get where you want to go instead of trying to muscle it out yourself
Right.
by being like, oh, I'm going to do it with no help. That doesn't go anywhere. You're limited by yourself. Like everyone works at 100%, but the winners are at 110. The 10% comes from external.
Right.
You need it. So, like, my best advice to anyone at any time, ask for help. It is a strength. It is not a weakness. It is absolutely strong.
Hmm.
Weak people can't admit that they need help. That's real weakness, is being so tough that you can't ask.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that that's great. And so who was part of the support group for you and like some of those inspirations? I know you talked obviously about Lydia and
Lydia was always there on the
Mhm.
athlete side, and I had many teammates over the time. But honestly, it was family, mum and dad,
Mhm.
the whole time. And I'm very fortunate, and I know not so many people are. They supported me 100%,
Mhm.
paid for everything,
Mhm.
but more so supported. So it wasn't just, they weren't just throwing money at me going, oh, good luck.
Mhm.
They wanted to give me the opportunity to really have a go at being something special and support
Mhm.
it the whole time. And I remember my first World Cup that I competed in, they came overseas. It was to Utah, actually. Good old Deer Valley.
DV
Great event. DV, first World Cup.
under the lights.
Yeah, oh, best crowd. I would, if I could still compete, that'd probably be the only place I would go. And I failed so miserably in front of them that day, and I was so embarrassed. I was like, how hopeless am I? My parents had come all the way over here, and I just felt so pathetic. And they said to me, "We are so proud that you are here having a go. We do not care
Mhm.
if you come first or last. We don't care. You're here. You're doing this amazing thing. You're making the most of this opportunity." And that conversation never ever left me. It was such a powerful sentence. Just be like, it's simple to say, we're proud of you no matter what. It's very cliche, but like when they really mean it, and you're like,
Right.
we've paid to come over here, we've paid for you so you can have an opportunity to try it. And we're so proud that you're having a go at it, whether it works or not. You're having a go. And that's all they wanted, was to give me a shot to like go for it and not quit and be like, no, you're having a go. And that never left me. And I never stressed about parents watching ever again after that. And I think if the parents out there who have their kids in sport, that's my advice to you.
Mhm.
You have to let your kid know that you don't care if they win. And maybe you do, but you can't say it. You can't say it.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't say it. And of course you want them to do well, but the chances are they won't, because statistically they won't.
Right.
And they won't get what they want. But you have to understand that they're out there trying their best with the opportunity that you've provided, and you have to be proud of them for going out there and having a go. Because, like, talking aerials, you watch the sport, you go, this is insane.
Mhm.
And to do it takes guts. So my parents went, what you're doing is incredible.
Yep.
Whether you're good or bad at it, coming down and doing a jump is amazing. And that was so powerful for me. And I never stressed ever again about trying to impress my parents or proving to them anything, because I didn't have to. I'd never had to prove myself to my family, and that got me through my whole career for sure. Not having to prove to the family, proving to other people, sure.
Right.
But if you have to prove to your parents that you're good, I reckon that drains you down to
Oh
zero
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's
quickly,
gotta.
and you
Yep.
never get like, no, it's so tough. You watch kids, they're out there because their parents want them to be out there. They're not out there for themselves.
Mhm.
You have to be out there for yourself. So parents, you have to let your kid do it. And if they want to quit, they quit, because they're not going to do well if they're not there for themselves. Because the top tier of us, if you're not doing it for yourself, you're going to fail.
Right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't work. It
Yeah.
doesn't work. And you are so disappointed when you don't do well. And that's why after my last games, even though I didn't get what I wanted, I was still proud of myself because I was who I wanted to be as a person. Even though I didn't get the
Mhm.
result I wanted, I was like, this is who I want to be. Good role model. I'm out here having a great time. People are watching and they're inspired.
Mhm.
That lasts a lot longer than a medal. People are going to forget about what score, what jump I did, but they're going to be like, oh, that guy, I remember that guy. He did
Yep.
this and this and this, and he was really cool. That lasts forever. This is power
Right.
move.
Being that inspiration, that role model. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
But you
huge.
only get that with the confidence and the support from family. To be
Absolutely.
a person, not just an athlete. You have to be a good person.
No, couldn't agree more. Now, one question kind of after, what were some of the biggest things that you took away from your career to help you like into coaching? Because I know we touched a little bit on like, do as I say, not as I do. Like I've made these mistakes
Yes.
before and but like as you turn to teaching and coaching, like what are some of those things that you think have helped you, whether it's being organized, coming up with taking notes or just some
Yep. Yep.
skills that helped you as a coach and now as a teacher and what are a couple of those?
I've definitely told some kids to journal for sure.
Okay.
But the main thing I think is you can never compare yourself. And it's very hard because you do in your head. You go, oh, I would have done this. You cannot compare yourself to an athlete because they're not you and you are not them. You can tell
Hmm.
them, have you thought of it this way? Instead of like, I thought of it like this. And they'll go, I'm not you. I learned this very early. You never go, I know I would have done this. And they go, I'm not you. You're not me. You just go, have you thought of it this way? And just obviously that's your thought process.
Sure.
And you need to let them try and you need to let them fail. But I think the thing that I found the most, and this I learned from me because I worked a little bit differently to everyone. I like to mess around and have a fun time, and I wasn't as focused. And this put a lot of the coaches off at the start because they were trying to force me to do it a certain way, and I was like, nah, it doesn't work for me.
Hmm.
And so I definitely allow my athletes or anyone just to try a couple things. Like I would like to try this, and I know it's not going to work. I know it's not going to work, but they
Hmm.
think it will. So I let them fail at it as long
Right.
as it's safe because then it's done. Then they're not
Right.
hanging on to this. Oh, but my coach is telling me to want to do this, but I want to do this. Because then they do 50-50. They do half of what they want and half of what I want, and they achieve
Interesting.
0% of both. So I go, all right, let's do your one. And I know what's going to happen. They do a couple of it and they go, oh, yeah, that doesn't work. And I go, now would you like to do it my way? And they go, yes. And then I have 100% of their effort without
Mhm.
that little thought in the back of the head going, well, maybe I want to try this. So I go, if you guys have a thought or you want to try something, tell me, we'll try it. Maybe it will work. I
Right.
don't know everything. I don't know
Right. Right.
everything. I don't know
Sure.
exactly how you work. Maybe it works. It probably won't. But if it does, then we will do it. I let kids try. And then when they realize it doesn't work, that thought is gone. And we just remove all the things that don't work until they eventually come back to what I want. This is what I learned. Really, you have to be a little bit more patient, but the time it would take fighting someone where they half want to do it would take months. And you can
Right.
just let them have a week and you go, do a week, and then it's over. And you go, now I have you 100% for the rest. And it
Right. They're
ends
focused
up
in
going
and they want
further.
to, yeah. Hmm.
So that, yeah, I've definitely told them to journal before. And just to learn from the mistakes. Like they're like, oh, I was so bad today. So I always ask the same question. What did you learn today? Like, oh, I sucked. I'm like, no, that's not what I asked. What did you learn today? Like, oh, I can't land. I'm like, well, what did you learn from not landing? And
Right.
they're like, well, I was too far back. So I'm like, so what will you do? And they're like, oh, I'll be more forward. I'm like, so it was a productive day because you learned something.
Right.
Like you said before, you learn so much from the bad days.
Hmm.
Everything. On your bad days, you learn all of your errors. They are magnified. Everything you do wrong is like, whoop, here it is. This is what you're doing. You're having a tight, you're too tired, whatever, and you go, all the mistakes that you make are just here they are. So you go, all right, this is clearly what I have to work on because when I'm tired, all the mistakes they're bigger. They
Hmm.
come out. So you go, okay, I still need to do work. When you have a great day, typically you just kind of go, oh, that was great. And you don't really tune into it. Like you learn so much. You remember the bad days more because you had to think about it. And it's
Right.
nice to cruise along sometimes. Absolutely. I'm not saying have bad days on purpose, but if you don't have them, you're not really progressing. You need
Right. Yeah.
to have them. Like you're cruising along is great. If you're at the top, yeah, keep cruising. Absolutely. But if you've still got this to go, like Do the process. Go down, go up, go down, go up.
Hmm.
And embrace it a little bit and just go, it's one of these bad days. Like I see the kids having a bad one. I go, it's one of those ones. We're just going to finish the day. We're just going to finish it.
Right. Ride it out.
I'm not going to grill you on the coaching. I can see it's one of these days. I go, I'm just going to watch. If I really think it's going to be unsafe, we're going to stop. But I think you can do a couple more. Let's see what happens when you're tired. Because at the end of a competition, you're going to be exhausted. So let's see what's going to happen when you're exhausted. Let's see what we can get out of you. And if you do happen to make it to the last round, I'm going to know what you're going to do, and I can be prepared for that. And we can be ready for an exhausted jump. This was actually a really good training session. You were tired, you were making mistakes, but now we know what you do when you're tired. And of course, you keep training through the tiredness and it gets less and less.
Right.
And then I'd show them videos at the end of the season. I go, this was your good day. This is now a terrible day. Now we're really good. Like, this was a good day at the start.
Yeah.
It's not good. It wasn't good. But now we're getting, it's like, so I let them fail. I let them have the bad day. And if they're having a bad day, I just back off. Like, I'm still there to support them. I go, I will give you feedback if you like. Otherwise, I will just video and I can show it to you, because video evidence is the best. They don't need to be told that they suck, because they know.
Right.
When they do a bad jump, they know. Like, people know when they do poorly, and reminding them never helps. And I hate it when people are like, oh, that wasn't good. I'm like, I know.
Thanks
for reminding me. I tried to get over it, getting out of the pool, and you reminded me. Awesome. So I just look at them. I go, I know you know. Let's go again. And they just go again. And you just don't make a big deal out of it, and embrace the suck sometimes and be like, yep, today's one of those.
Embrace the suck.
Today's a working day. You go, today's a working day. Today's a fun day. Today's a productive day. But every day for me is a productive day if you learn from it. The only time you aren't productive is when you choose not to be productive. You can have a bad day and go, that was the worst day ever. I go, and did you learn anything? No. Then it was a waste. Absolute waste of your time and effort.
Right.
You weren't paying attention. Something from it, weren't paying attention. You can have a bad day and learn, oh, I should have done this, this, and this. Super productive. Not a loss. Just numbers.
Right.
So that's what I learned from me and passing it on, just not to be too harsh on people. Know when to push, know when to back off. But, everyone's different.
Yeah.
I've made.
That's the fun aspect of coaching and teaching, right? Because everyone is.
You got to try. And I've made people cry. And sometimes it's not like I intentionally do it, but sometimes I want them to. I'm like, let me get some emotion out of you. Let me see how far you can go before you reach that limit. And they're just crying. I'm like, I'm sorry I made you cry. Don't take it personally. I wanted to see what you could do.
Right.
There's your limit. Now I know. Good to know. I won't push you that far again, but I need to know. The next time I might be able to get you there and get one more jump without you crying, and then we've made a little bit of progress. And I've been rough on people sometimes. Like, I'm for sure one of the more strict coaches and teachers in a sense. Like, I like to.
Yep.
But people need a push. Most do not have the intrinsic motivation to really do things without a little kick in the butt. So I'm happy to give people a kick in the butt, even if they don't like me.
Just to give them a little push. Just a little
push. And then you ease off and you go, this is why I did it. So you did such a great job. I just wanted to give you a little nudge, and you handled it super well. And just award them when they do well. But you got to push sometimes, and other times you go, just train. I'm not going to say anything.
Pull back a little bit.
Yeah, just that. I find that the hardest, but it was a good lesson to. I made plenty of mistakes to learn that one, believe me.
Right.
But I also had a good mentor as a coach. So I have Mish Roth from the Swiss team. He was my mentor coach. We coached together, and he has so much experience. So he was like, whoa, don't say that. I'm like, why not? He's like, go on then. And I wouldn't. He's like, see, told you. I was like, yep, fair enough. Should have listened. Shouldn't have said that. He just knows. He's had it all. So
right.
Same thing. As an athlete, you want them not to make the same mistakes. And then when you become a coach, someone's trying to teach you and you still make the same mistakes.
You still
got the ego, because you still do what you want. Never changes.
Well, man, this has been so much fun, dude. I really appreciate you
thank you very much.
the time getting to do this. This has been great. And
I hope I learned a bunch. Good information in there.
No, this is a ton. So thank you so much for making this happen and coming on.
Pleasure.
And I really appreciate it, dude.
Have a good one. Thanks very much.
All right. Bye, everybody.